The stars looked different from the bridge of the massive warship called Eternal Glory. Fleet Commander Caro stood with his hands behind his back, watching the view screen that showed the empty space ahead. His purple skin had small ridges along his forehead that showed he was thinking hard about something important. "Sir, we are now entering the outer edge of the target system," said Commander Bora from her station near the weapons controls. Her voice was calm and professional, like always. Bora had been with Caro for many battles, and she never showed fear or worry about anything they faced. Caro nodded slowly. This was their 48th conquest mission. The Valathi Empire had been growing bigger and stronger for over 100 years. Every time they found a new species, the same thing happened. The aliens would try to fight back for a few days, maybe a week at most, and then they would give up. After that, they became part of the Empire and had to follow Valathi rules. "What do our spy ships tell us about these humans?" Caro asked, even though he already knew the answer. He had read the reports many times during their long trip to this system. Sub-Commander Nuri looked up from his datapad. He was younger than the others, with bright yellow eyes that showed he was excited about this new mission. "The humans are very basic, sir. They still use chemical rockets to move between their planets. Their weapons are simple metal projectiles and basic energy beams. Our scouts say they only live on one planet and a few small moon bases." Commander Bora laughed softly. "Chemical rockets? Do they still burn plant matter for fuel too?" Several other officers on the bridge also made quiet, laughing sounds. The idea of such old technology seemed funny to them. "Their communication systems are also very simple," added Communications Officer Hana. She was sitting at a control panel covered with blinking lights and small screens. "They send radio waves through space instead of using quantum links like civilized species. Our ships could probably jam all their messages in a few minutes." Caro walked closer to the main view screen. Through the clear space, he could see their target, a small yellow star with several planets around it. Long-range sensors showed that most of the planets were empty rocks or gas balls. Only one planet, the third one from the star, had the right conditions for life. "How many ships do they have?" asked Caro. Science Officer Dora checked her instruments. Her green eyes moved quickly as she read the data. "Our scouts found maybe 50 or 60 small ships around their home planet. Most of them look like transport, vessels or mining ships. We think they have less than 10 real warships, and those are very small." Caro almost smiled. The Valathi 7th Expansion Fleet had 200 ships. Their smallest destroyer was bigger than what the humans called a battleship. The Eternal Glory alone was larger than most space stations that other species built. "Sir, should we send the standard surrender message when we get closer?" asked Hana. "Yes, but I do not think we will need to wait long for their answer," Caro said. "Most species see our fleet and give up right away. These humans will probably do the same thing." The bridge was quiet except for the soft humming sounds that all Valathi ships made. Everyone was doing their job and checking their systems. This felt like just another normal day to them. They had done this same thing so many times that it was almost boring. Weapons Officer Tay was testing his control panels. The lights showed that all weapons were working perfectly. "All gun systems are ready, sir. The main plasma cannon is charged and waiting for orders." "Good," said Caro. "But I do not think we will need to use much firepower today. These humans sound too weak to put up a real fight." As their fleet moved deeper into the human star system, long-range sensors began picking up more details. The third planet did have cities and technology, but everything looked very basic compared to Valathi standards. The humans had some space, stations, but they were small and simple. "Look at this," said Dora, pointing to her screen. "The humans are still using metal and concrete to build their space stations. They do not even have basic energy shields around them." Nuri shook his head in amazement. "How did a species this backward even manage to reach space? They must have just discovered rocket technology a few years ago." Bora was looking at the tactical information. "Their spaceships move very slowly. Our fastest scout ships could fly circles around their biggest warships. This will be the easiest conquest we have ever done." Caro was starting to feel a little disappointed. He had hoped these humans might be more interesting than the usual species they found. Some alien races at least tried to fight back for a while before giving up. It was more fun when there was some challenge involved. "Sir," Hana suddenly called, "out." Her voice sounded surprised. I am getting something strange on the sensors. Everyone on the bridge turned to look at her. Hana was staring at her control panel with a confused expression on her face. What is it? Asked Caro. There is a human ship coming toward us. Just one ship. It is moving to intercept our entire fleet. The bridge became very quiet. Then Bora started laughing. Soon other officers were laughing too. One ship? Said Nuri between laughs. One human ship against our whole fleet? Are they trying to surrender personally? Caro walked over to look at Hana's screen. Sure enough, there was a single contact moving toward them from the direction of the human home planet. The ship was small, about the size of a Valathi patrol boat. Maybe their leader wants to talk about surrender terms, suggested Bora. Some species like to negotiate instead of just giving up right away. Or maybe they want to see our ships up close before they decide to give up, added Tay. Caro studied the approaching ship on the display. It was moving at a steady speed, not too fast, but not slow either. There was something about its movement that seemed very calm and sure, like the pilot knew exactly what they were doing. What kind of weapons does it have? Asked Caro. Dora checked her instruments. Sensors show some kind of energy projection system, but the power readings are very low. It does not look dangerous at all. How long until it reaches us? About 20 minutes at current speed, answered Hana. Caro thought for a moment. This was unusual, but not really worrying. Sometimes alien species did strange things when they first met the Valathi Empire. Maybe the humans wanted to inspect their fleet before deciding whether to fight or surrender. That would actually be smart of them. All ships, maintain course and speed, Caro ordered. Let the human ship approach. We will capture it and talk to whoever is inside. Maybe we can end this without any fighting at all. The crew continued their work as the human ship got closer. Everyone seemed relaxed and confident. They had the biggest and strongest fleet in this part of the galaxy. One small alien ship was not going to change anything. But as Caro watched the approaching vessel on the screen, he felt a small feeling in his stomach that he could not explain. Something about this situation felt different from their previous conquests. The human ship was flying straight toward them without any fear or hesitation. Most species, when they saw the Valathi fleet for the first time, either ran away immediately or sent many ships to meet them. But these humans had sent just one ship, and it was coming right at them like it had every right to be there. Caro shook his head and pushed the strange feeling away. There was nothing to worry about. In a few hours, the humans would be part of the Valathi Empire, just like all the others. The human ship was now close enough for the Valathi to see it clearly on their screens. It looked strange compared to the ships they were used to seeing. The hull was smooth and dark, with no visible weapons or armor plating. To the Valathi officers, it looked more like a transport vessel than a warship. Open communication channels, ordered Fleet Commander Caro. He straightened his uniform and prepared to speak with whatever creature was commanding the human vessel. Communications Officer Hana worked at her controls for a few moments. Channel. Open, sir. The human ship is responding to our signal. The main screen flickered and then showed the inside of the human ship's bridge. Caro was surprised by what he saw. The human captain looked very calm and relaxed, sitting in a simple chair surrounded by control panels that seemed much less complex than Valathi technology. The human was smaller than most Valathi, with pale skin and dark hair. He wore a plain blue uniform with some small metal pieces attached to it. His eyes were a strange brown color that Caro had never seen before. Good day, said the human captain in perfect galactic standard language. His voice was steady and polite. I am Captain Juno of the human space vessel Indomitable. You have entered the Sol system, which is human territory. I must ask you to turn around and leave immediately. The bridge of the Eternal Glory became very quiet. Several officers looked at each other with surprised expressions. Commander Bora covered her mouth to hide a smile that was trying to appear on her face. Did he just tell us to leave? Whispered Sub-Commander Nuri to the officer next to him. Caro cleared his throat and stepped forward so the human could see him clearly. I am Fleet Commander Caro of the Valathi Imperial Navy. We represent the Valathi Empire, which controls this entire sector of space. You and your people are now under our protection and authority. Captain Juno listened carefully, and then nodded slowly. I understand your position, Fleet Commander. However, I must inform you that humanity does not recognize any claims to our star system. We ask again that you leave our space peacefully." Bora could not help herself anymore, and let out a small laugh. "Captain, do you understand how many ships we have? There are 200 Velothi vessels in this fleet. Your single ship is asking our entire navy to retreat?" The human captain looked at Bora with the same calm expression. "I understand your numbers, Commander. However, this does not change our position. The Sol system belongs to humanity, and we will defend it if necessary." Weapons Officer Tay was staring at his control panel with confusion. "Sir, their ship is not raising shields or powering weapons. They are just sitting there like they are not worried about anything." Science Officer Dora was also looking puzzled. "The energy readings from their ship are very strange. It looks like most of their systems are turned off or running at very low power. Maybe they are having technical problems?" Caro decided to try a different approach. Maybe these humans did not understand how powerful the Velothi Empire really was. "Captain Juno, perhaps you do not know who we are. The Velothi Empire has conquered 47 different species in the past century. We have the most advanced technology and the strongest military in this part of the galaxy. We do not wish to harm your people, but we cannot allow you to refuse our authority." Captain Juno was quiet for a moment, as if he was thinking about something important. "Fleet. Commander Caro, humanity appreciates your offer, but we must decline. We have no interest in joining your empire or accepting your authority. We prefer to remain independent." "But that is not how this works," said Nuri, sounding frustrated. "When the Velothi Empire comes to your system, you have two choices. You can join us peacefully, or we will force you to join us. There is no third option." The human captain's expression did not change at all. "I understand that is how your empire normally operates. However, humanity operates under different rules. We will defend our territory against any hostile action." Bora was getting annoyed with this strange conversation. "Captain, look at your sensors. Look at our ships. We have dreadnoughts that could destroy your entire planet. We have weapons that can crack moons in half. What do you have? One small ship with no visible weapons?" "Our defensive capabilities are sufficient for our needs," replied Captain Juno simply. Hana was monitoring the communication signals and noticed something odd. "Sir, the human ship is sending data transmissions back. To their home planet, they are reporting our conversation to someone." "Let them," said Caro with a wave of his hand. "Maybe their leaders will have more sense than this captain. When they see our fleet, they will order him to surrender." But something was bothering Caro about this whole situation. Most alien species, when they first saw the Velothi fleet, reacted with fear or at least concern. Their captains would be nervous, asking questions about what the Velothi wanted or trying to negotiate for better terms. This human captain seemed completely unworried. He was polite and professional, but he showed no signs of being impressed or frightened by their massive fleet. It was like he was talking to equals instead of conquerors. "Captain Juno," said Caro, "I will give you one more chance to reconsider. The Velothi Empire offers your species protection, technology, and a place in our civilization. All we ask in return is that you accept our authority and follow our laws. This is a generous offer." Captain Juno was quiet for several seconds. When he spoke again, his voice had a slightly different tone. "Fleet Commander, I have received new instructions from Earth Command. I am authorized to inform you that any hostile action against human territory or human vessels will be met with appropriate defensive measures." "Defensive measures?" repeated Bora with amusement. "What kind of defensive measures could you possibly have?" "I am not at liberty to discuss the details of human military capabilities," said Captain Juno. "However, I strongly recommend that you accept our request to leave this system peacefully." Tay was looking at his weapon controls with growing impatience. "Sir, should I target their ship? One shot from our main guns would end this conversation quickly." Caro was getting tired of this pointless discussion. The human captain was either very brave or very stupid. Either way, it was time to show these humans what happened when someone refused the Velothi Empire. "Captain Juno, you have forced our hand. We did not want to use violence, but you leave us no choice. Prepare to be boarded." The human captain shook his head slowly. "I am sorry to hear that, Fleet Commander. I had hoped we could resolve this peacefully. Your ship will surrender now, or we will disable it and take it by force," said Caro firmly. I cannot allow that to happen, replied Captain Juno. Dora was still studying her sensor readings of the human ship. Something about the energy patterns was not making sense. Sir, I am getting some unusual readings from their vessel. Their power core seems to be different from anything in our databases. Different how? Asked Caro. I am not sure. The energy signature is very clean, much more efficient than our fusion reactors, but the total output seems very low, like they are barely using any power at all. Hana interrupted their conversation. Sir, the human ship is broadcasting a message on all frequencies. Put it through, ordered Caro. Captain Juno's voice came through the speakers clearly. Attention, Velothi Fleet. This is Captain Juno of the HSV Indomitable. You have now committed an act of aggression against the sovereign territory of humanity. I am hereby authorized to take defensive action to protect human space. This is your final warning to withdraw from the Sol system immediately. The entire bridge crew stared at the communication screen in amazement. Bora started laughing again, but this time it sounded more forced than before. Final warning? Said Nuri. He is giving us a final warning? Caro had reached the end of his patience. These humans were either completely insane or they knew something that his fleet did not. Either way, it was time to end this foolishness. All ships prepare for combat operations, he announced. We will disable the human vessel and show them what happens when someone defies the Velothi Empire. As the crew prepared for battle, none of them noticed that Science Officer Dora was still staring at her instruments with a worried expression. The readings from the human ship were unlike anything she had ever seen, and she was beginning to suspect that they might be making a very big mistake. Fleet Commander Caro stood tall on the bridge of the Eternal Glory. He had given these humans every chance to surrender peacefully, but they had chosen to be stubborn. Now he would show them why no species had ever successfully resisted the Velothi Empire. Weapons Officer Tay, prepare the main plasma cannon for a warning shot, Caro ordered. His voice was calm and professional, the same tone he had used in dozens of previous conquests. Tay's hands moved quickly over his control panel. Lights began flashing as the massive weapon system powered up. Main cannon charging, sir. Target locked on the human vessel. The main plasma cannon of the Eternal Glory was a weapon of incredible power. It had once destroyed an entire moon base belonging to the Zephyrian Resistance. The energy beam it produced could cut through the strongest known armor like a hot knife through soft butter. Set power to 30%, said Caro. We want to disable their ship, not vaporize it. I still hope to capture some humans alive for questioning. Commander Bora was watching the tactical display. The human ship is still not raising shields or taking any defensive action. They are just sitting there waiting for us to fire. Maybe they have accepted their fate, suggested Sub-Commander Nuri. Some species give up once they realize resistance is hopeless. Science Officer Dora was still studying her instruments. The energy readings from the human ship continued to puzzle her. Their power systems seemed to work on completely different principles than anything the Velothi had encountered before. Cannon charged and ready, sir, reported Tay. Caro looked one more time at the human ship on the main screen. Captain Juno was still visible on the communication channel, sitting calmly in his captain's chair. The human showed no signs of fear or worry, even though he was about to be hit by one of the most powerful weapons in the galaxy. Fire, ordered Caro. The main plasma cannon of the Eternal Glory unleashed its fury. A brilliant beam of superheated energy raced across the empty space between the two ships. The beam was so bright that the main screen automatically dimmed to protect the eyes of the Velothi crew. Every officer on the bridge leaned forward to watch the impact. They had seen this same scene many times before. The alien ship would be hit by the plasma beam and either explode completely or be left drifting helplessly with its systems destroyed. The energy beam struck the human ship directly in the center of its hull. And then something impossible happened. The beam simply disappeared. It did not bounce off or get absorbed slowly. One moment there was a powerful plasma blast hitting the human ship, and the next moment there was nothing. The energy just vanished as if it had never existed. The bridge of the Eternal Glory became completely silent. Every officer stared at their instruments in disbelief. What happened? Asked Caro quietly. Tay was frantically checking his weapon controls. I do not understand, sir. The cannon fired perfectly, The beam reached the target, but then the energy just disappeared, finished Dora. She was running diagnostic programs on all her sensors. According to my readings, our plasma beam hit their hull and was completely absorbed. No reflection, no heat buildup, no damage to their ship. Nothing. Bora moved closer to the tactical display. Are you saying their ship absorbed a direct hit from our main cannon and was not even scratched? That is exactly what I am saying, replied Dora. Her voice sounded worried now. Their hull does not even show scorch marks. Communications Officer Hana was monitoring the human ship's transmissions. They are not sending any distress signals. Their power levels have not changed. It is like nothing happened to them. On the main screen, Captain Juno was still sitting in his chair with the same calm expression. If he had felt the impact of the plasma cannon at all, he was not showing it. Sir? Said Tay hesitantly. Should I increase power and fire again? Kara was trying to understand what he had just witnessed. In all his years of military service, he had never seen any ship completely absorb a plasma cannon blast without taking any damage. Even the strongest Velothi shields would show some effect from such a powerful hit. Maybe their sensors are wrong, suggested Nuri. Maybe the beam missed the target. Dora shook her head. Negative. All sensors confirmed direct impact. The beam hit their ship exactly where we aimed it. Captain Juno's voice came through the communication system again. Fleet Commander Caro, you have now fired upon a human space force vessel. This constitutes an act of war according to human law. I must inform you that defensive protocols are now authorized. Defensive protocols? Repeated Bora. What does that mean? Caro felt a cold feeling growing in his stomach. Something was very wrong here. Ships did not simply absorb plasma cannon blasts without taking damage. It was physically impossible. Tay, run a full diagnostic on the main cannon, he ordered. Already doing it, sir, replied Tay. All systems show normal operation. The weapon, fired exactly as programmed. Hana was listening to more transmissions from the human ship. Sir, they are broadcasting a message to their home planet. It sounds like they are reporting our attack and asking for instructions. What kind of instructions? Asked Caro. I cannot tell. They are using some kind of coded language that our computers cannot translate. Science Officer Dora was now running every sensor scan she could think of on the human vessel. Sir, I am detecting some very unusual energy patterns around their ship. It looks like they have some kind of field generator, but it is not like any technology in our databases. What kind of field? I do not know. The energy signature is completely unknown. It seems to surround their entire ship like a bubble, but it is not visible to normal sensors. Caro made a decision. All forward ships target the human vessel, full squadron attack. I want every gun firing at once. Commander Bora looked surprised. Sir, are you sure? That much firepower could destroy their ship completely. If one cannon blast did nothing, maybe we need more power, said Caro grimly. Within minutes, 12 heavy cruisers and 30 destroyers had moved into attack position. Each ship charged its weapons and aimed at the lone human vessel. The combined firepower was enough to destroy a small moon. Captain Juno was still visible on the communication screen. He seemed to be talking quietly with other members of his crew, but his voice was too low for the Velothi to hear what he was saying. All ships report ready to fire, announced Bora. Caro took a deep breath. Fire all weapons. The space around the human ship exploded with energy. Plasma cannons, particle beams, antimatter torpedoes, and ion blasters all struck the small vessel at exactly the same moment. The combined attack was so intense that it created a brilliant flash of light visible across the entire star system. For several seconds, the human ship was completely hidden inside a ball of destructive energy. No ship in the galaxy could survive such an assault. When the light faded, there should have been nothing left but scattered debris, but when the energy dissipated and the sensors cleared, the human ship was still there. It hung in space exactly where it had been before, completely undamaged. Its hull showed no signs of impact. Its systems were still running normally. The attack that could have destroyed a planet had no more effect than throwing pebbles at a mountain. This is impossible, whispered Tay. Dora was staring at her instruments with wide eyes. All sensors confirmed 0 damage to the target. Their ship absorbed the entire attack without any visible effect. Nuri was looking pale. What kind of technology do these humans have? Captain Juno's voice came through the speakers again, and this time he sounded disappointed rather than angry. Fleet Commander Caro, you have now committed multiple acts of war against humanity. I had hoped we could resolve this situation peacefully, but you have chosen aggression. I am now authorized to take defensive action. Caro felt like the floor was falling away beneath his feet. Nothing in his military training had prepared him for this situation. How could any ship, no matter how advanced, simply ignore that level of firepower? Sir, said Hana nervously, the human ship is powering up some kind of weapon system. What kind of weapon? Asked Caro. I do not know. I have never seen energy readings like this before. On the screen, Captain Juno was speaking to someone off camera. Then he turned back to face the Velothi fleet. Fleet Commander, he said calmly, you should know that the HSV Indomitable is classified as a light patrol vessel in the human Space Force. We are essentially a police ship. I strongly suggest you reconsider your current course of action. A light patrol vessel. The ship that had just ignored the combined firepower of 43 Velothi warships was nothing more than a police boat to these humans. Caro realized with growing horror that his fleet might have made the biggest mistake in Velothi history. Aboard the human ship Indomitable, Captain Juno was speaking quietly with his tactical officer. The Velothi could not hear their conversation, but they could see that the humans were discussing something important. Dana, what is our current authorization? Level? Asked Captain Juno. Tactical Officer Dana checked her control panel. Earth Command has authorized Level 2 defensive measures, sir. We are cleared to disable hostile vessels without causing casualties. Understood. Minho, how are our systems running? Engineering Chief Minho looked up from his station. All systems normal, Captain. The Velothi weapons had no effect on our hull plating. Our shields did not even need to activate. Captain Juno nodded. What the Velothi did not understand was that human technology had developed along completely different paths than anything else in the galaxy. While other species focused on bigger guns and thicker armor, humans had learned to manipulate energy itself. The hull of the Indomitable was made from metamaterials that could absorb and redirect any form of energy attack. The Velothi plasma weapons were powerful, but they were still just energy. To human defensive systems, they were no more dangerous than flashlights. Sir, said Dana, should I target their flagship? Yes, but remember the rules. Disable only. No casualties. Back on the Eternal Glory, the Velothi crew was watching their instruments with growing fear. Science Officer Dora was detecting new energy patterns from the human ship that made no sense according to everything she knew about physics. Sir, she said nervously, their weapon is charging, but the energy readings are completely impossible. According to my sensors, they are manipulating fundamental forces that we do not even have names for. Fleet Commander Caro felt sweat forming on his forehead despite the cool air on the bridge. What do you mean? I mean their technology appears to work on principles that violate known scientific laws. They are doing things that should not be possible. Commander Bora was staring at the tactical display. How long until their weapon is ready to fire? Unknown, replied Dora. I cannot predict anything about their systems. Nothing follows normal patterns. Weapons Officer Tay was still trying to understand what had happened to their attack. Sir, should I prepare another barrage? Maybe if we concentrate all fire on one small section of their hull? No, said Caro quietly. If 43 ships firing at once did nothing, more ships will not help. On the main screen, Captain Juno was speaking again. Fleet Commander Caro, my ship is now prepared to demonstrate human defensive capabilities. Please observe. The human ship fired a single, precise energy pulse. It was not a massive beam like the Velothi plasma cannons. Instead, it was a small, focused burst of energy that moved almost too fast to see. The pulse struck the Eternal Glories, main weapon array, and simply passed through their shields as if they were not there. The Velothi officers watched in amazement as their most powerful defensive systems were completely ignored. But the human weapon did not destroy anything. Instead, it somehow disabled the plasma cannon's power systems without damaging the surrounding equipment. The massive weapon that had threatened entire planets was now completely useless. But the rest of the ship remained fully functional. How is that possible? Whispered Sub-Commander Nuri. Tay was frantically working at his controls. The main cannon is offline, but I do not understand why. There is no damage to any components. It is like the weapon just forgot how to work. Dora was running every scan she could think of. The human energy pulse somehow disrupted the quantum field that powers our cannon. But to do that requires understanding our technology better than we understand it ourselves. Captain Juno's voice came through the communication system again. Fleet Commander, that was a demonstration of precision targeting. We disabled your primary weapon without harming any of your crew members. This is what we call a police action. Caro realized that his mouth was hanging open and closed it quickly. How did you do that? Human technology operates on different principles than what you are familiar with, replied Captain Juno calmly. We prefer to resolve conflicts without unnecessary violence. Communications Officer Hana was monitoring radio transmissions throughout the system. Suddenly, her face went pale. Sir, I am detecting new signatures, multiple contacts appearing throughout the system. Appearing from where? Asked Caro. I do not know. They are just materializing. Ships are appearing out of empty space all around us. Bora rushed to the tactical station and began counting the new contacts. How many ships are we detecting? Hana worked frantically at her controls. The number keeps growing. 10, 20, 50, 100. Sir, there are human ships everywhere. We are completely surrounded. Caro felt his legs becoming weak. How many total? I count over 300 contacts now, and more are still appearing. Science Officer Dora was staring at her sensors in disbelief. Sir, these ships were not using any kind of faster-than-light travel. They were already here, somehow invisible to our sensors. It is like they were hiding in plain sight. Captain Juno was listening to something through an earpiece. Then he looked back at the Velothi fleet. Fleet Commander Caro, I have been in contact with Earth Command. They would like to know your intentions regarding human territory. Our intentions? Repeated Caro weakly. Yes. Are you planning to continue your attack, or would you prefer to discuss withdrawal from our system? Bora was looking at the tactical display with horror. Red dots representing human ships surrounded every Velothi vessel. Sir, we are completely surrounded. There are at least 5 human ships for every one of ours. But that is not the worst part, added Dora. I am getting size estimates on some of these vessels. Some of them are enormous. The largest ones are 10 times bigger than our dreadnought. Nuri was looking at his own instruments. Their fleet includes ships the size of space stations. How do they even build something that large? Captain Juno continued his conversation. Fleet Commander, I should mention that the vessels you are seeing represent only our local patrol fleet. The Sol system is defended by approximately 1,500 ships, with more arriving as we speak. 1,500 ships. The entire Velothi Empire had only 800 vessels in total, and most of those were scattered across dozens of star systems. These humans had almost twice as many ships defending just one system. This cannot be real, said Caro quietly. I am afraid it is very real, replied Captain Juno. Human space is well defended. We take security very seriously. Hana was listening to more human transmissions. Sir, they are communicating with each other using quantum entanglement networks. Their coordination is perfect. Every ship in their fleet is receiving orders instantly. Dora was analyzing the energy signatures of the human fleet. Sir, the power. Readings from their larger ships are beyond measurement. My instruments cannot even calculate how much energy they are producing. What does that mean? Asked Caro. It means their biggest ships have more firepower than our entire empire combined. Captain Juno was speaking with someone off screen again. When he turned back to the Velothi, his expression was still calm and professional. Fleet Commander, I have received word from Admiral Yuna, commander of the Sol Defense Fleet. She is prepared to discuss terms for your safe departure from human space. Admiral Yuna? Repeated Caro. Yes, she commands all human military forces in this system. Would you like to speak with her? Before Caro could answer, the main screen changed to show a different human. This one was clearly a senior military officer, wearing a more elaborate uniform with additional insignia. Admiral Yuna looked stern but not hostile. Fleet Commander Caro, she said in a clear, strong voice. I am Admiral Yuna of the Human Space Force. You have committed acts of war against humanity by firing upon our vessels and entering our territory with hostile intent. Caro tried to find his voice. Admiral, we did not know... You did not know that attacking our ships would be considered an act of war? Admiral Yuna's eyebrows rose slightly. That seems like a failure of intelligence on your part. We thought. Our information said that humans were a primitive species. Your information was incorrect. However, humanity prefers peaceful solutions to conflicts. I am prepared to allow your fleet to leave our territory unharmed, provided you agree to certain conditions. What conditions? Asked Caro weakly. First, you will make no further attempts to enter human space without permission. Second, you will inform your government that humanity is not interested in joining your empire. Third, you will provide us with complete information about your military capabilities so we can assess any future threat you might pose. Commander Bora leaned close to Caro and whispered, Sir, what choice do we have? We are completely outgunned. Caro looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. Every officer looked frightened and confused. Their mighty fleet, which had conquered dozens of species, was helpless against these humans. Admiral Yuna, said Caro slowly, may I ask you something? Go ahead. Captain Juno said his ship was a light patrol vessel. What kind of ship is it? Really? Admiral Yuna smiled slightly. Captain Juno was telling the truth. The Indomitable is indeed a patrol ship. It is designed for police work and border security, not military combat. The bridge of the eternal glory became completely silent as the full meaning of her words sank in. The ship that had effortless. Admiral Yuna was looking at Fleet Commander Caro with an expression that seemed almost patient, like a teacher waiting for a slow student to understand a simple lesson. Fleet Commander, I think it would be helpful if you could see exactly what you are dealing with. I am going to authorize a show of force to help you make an informed decision about your next actions. Caro felt his hands shaking slightly. A show of force? Yes. My fleet has been operating under stealth protocols since you entered our system. I think it is time for you to see us properly. Admiral Yuna spoke to someone off-screen. All ships disengage stealth systems, full visibility protocols. Let our guests see what the Sol Defense Fleet actually looks like. What happened next would haunt every Valathi officer for the rest of their lives. Space around the Valathi fleet began to change. Ships that had been invisible started to appear, but not in the way that normal vessels decloak. Instead, reality itself seemed to bend and twist as massive structures materialized out of what had appeared to be empty space. Science Officer Dora watched her instruments go completely insane. Sir, the energy readings are off every scale I have. My sensors cannot even process what they are detecting. The first ship to fully materialize was so large that at first the Valathi thought it was a space station. The vessel stretched for dozens of kilometers in every direction. Its hull was a dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange patterns of energy flowed across its surface like living lightning. How big is that ship? Whispered Subcommander Nuri. Dora was trying to get accurate measurements, but her computers kept displaying error messages. It is at least 50 kilometers long, maybe more. I cannot get exact readings because my sensors cannot scan the entire ship at once, but that was just the beginning. More ships continued to appear, each one larger and more impossible than the last. Vessels that looked like floating cities, weapons platforms that could have been small moons, construction ships that were bigger than most planets the Valathi had ever seen. Commander Bora was staring at the tactical display in complete silence. Red dots representing human ships covered the entire screen. There were so many contacts that they began to overlap, creating solid patches of red light. How many ships are there? Asked Caro weakly. Communications Officer Hana was trying to count the contacts, but new ones kept appearing faster than she could track them. Over 1,000 confirmed contacts, sir. Possibly more. My systems cannot process this much data at once. The most terrifying thing about the human fleet was not just its size, but the casual way it had appeared. These ships had been hiding all around the Valathi fleet since they entered the system. The humans had been watching and waiting, completely invisible, while the Valathi made their threats and fired their weapons. Weapons Officer Tay was looking at energy readings that made no sense. Sir, Some of these ships are producing more power than our entire home planet. How is that possible? I do not know, replied Dora. Her voice sounded very small. Their technology is so far beyond ours that I cannot even understand what I am looking at. One of the human ships was close enough for them to see details of its construction. The hull appeared to be made of some kind of living metal that moved and shifted like liquid. Structures on the ship's surface rearranged themselves as they watched, as if the vessel was rebuilding itself continuously. Are those ships alive? Asked Nuri. I do not think so, said Dora. But their technology appears to operate on principles that we have never encountered. They are using materials and energy sources that should not exist. Another human vessel drifted past the Eternal Glory, and the Velothi crew got a good look at its weapons systems. What they saw made their own plasma cannons look like primitive spears compared to modern rifles. The human ship had weapons that seemed to bend space around them, energy projectors that created small tears in reality itself, launch tubes for projectiles that appeared to exist in multiple dimensions at the same time. Those are not weapons, said Tay quietly. Those are forces of nature that they have somehow learned to control. Admiral Yuna's voice came through the communication system again. Fleet Commander Caro, what you are seeing is the standard defensive fleet for one human star system. We maintain similar forces around all of our worlds. How many worlds do you have? Asked Caro. That information is classified. However, I can tell you that humanity controls significantly more territory than your intelligence report suggested. Science Officer Dora was trying to analyze the human ship's propulsion systems. Sir, I cannot understand how these vessels move. They do not appear to use any kind of reaction drive or space-time manipulation that we are familiar with. What do you mean? I mean they seem to ignore physics entirely. They move by simply deciding to be in a different location. One of the largest human ships began to demonstrate its capabilities. Without any visible effort, the massive vessel simply vanished and reappeared several thousand kilometers away. Then it repeated the process, moving instantly between different positions around the Velothi fleet. Teleportation? Asked Bora. Not exactly, replied Dora. It looks more like they are folding space to bring their destination to them, rather than moving through space normally. Captain Juno's image reappeared on the main screen. Fleet Commander, I should probably mention that what you are seeing represents only a small portion of human military capability. These are patrol and defense vessels. Our actual warships are somewhat more impressive. Caro felt like he was drowning in an ocean of impossibility. More impressive than this? Oh yes. The Sol Defense Fleet is designed to protect our home system from minor threats. If we were facing a serious military challenge, we would call in the real Navy. Admiral Yuna spoke again. Fleet Commander, I want to be very clear about your situation. The ships you see around you could destroy your entire fleet in approximately 30 seconds. However, we prefer to avoid unnecessary violence. You have exactly 10 minutes to decide whether you wish to leave our territory peacefully or whether we need to escort you out by force. Weapons Officer Tay was looking at his control panels with despair. Sir, our weapons would not even scratch the paint on their smallest ships. We might as well be throwing rocks at mountains. Sub-Commander Nuri was studying the human fleet formations. They are not even pointing their weapons at us. They are treating us like we are not a threat at all. And that was perhaps the most humiliating realization of all. The human fleet was not positioned for battle. The ships were arranged in casual patrol formations, as if the Velothi fleet was just another minor problem to be dealt with during a routine day. Sir, said Communications Officer Hana, I am receiving a transmission from the Velothi High Command. They are asking for a status report on our conquest of the human system. Caro almost laughed, but the sound came out more like a sob. What should I tell them? The truth? Suggested Commander Bora quietly. Caro looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These were experienced military officers who had served in dozens of successful campaigns. Now they all looked like children who had just discovered that monsters were real. Science Officer Dora was still trying to analyze the human technology. Sir, I have been thinking about their capabilities. Based on what I have observed, I believe these humans could probably destroy our entire empire without leaving their home system. How? Their ships appear to be capable of faster-than-light travel that ignores distance entirely. They could appear above any of our worlds at any time, and their weapons— Dora gestured helplessly at her instruments. Their weapons operate on principles that make our most advanced technology look like Stone Age tools. Admiral Yuna's voice interrupted their conversation. Fleet Commander, you now have 5 minutes to make your decision. Caro realized that he was facing the most important choice in Valathi history. He could try to fight these humans and watch his entire fleet be destroyed in seconds, or he could accept that the Valathi Empire had just discovered that they were not the most powerful force in the galaxy. In fact, compared to these humans, they were barely even a minor annoyance. Admiral Yuna, said Caro slowly, the Valathi fleet accepts your terms. We will withdraw from your territory immediately and inform our government that humanity is not to be disturbed. A wise decision, Fleet Commander. Captain Juno will escort you to the edge of our system to ensure you do not encounter any navigation difficulties. As the Valathi fleet began its humiliating retreat, Caro looked one more time at the human ships surrounding them. These vessels represented technology so advanced that it might as well be magic. The humans had not just defeated the Valathi Empire, they had made it clear that the defeat was so easy it was barely worth their attention. The most powerful military force the Valathi had ever assembled had been casually swatted aside by what the humans considered a local police force, and somewhere in the back of Caro's mind, a terrifying question began to form. If these were just their patrol ships, what did their actual military look like? The journey to the edge of the Sol system felt like the longest trip of Fleet Commander Caro's life. The human ship Indomitable flew alongside the Valathi fleet, not as a guard, but as a guide. Captain Juno had been polite and professional throughout. The escort, even offering to help if any Valathi ships experienced technical problems during their departure. The casual kindness was almost worse than threats would have been. Commander Bora sat quietly at her station, staring at the sensor readings from the human vessels that continued to surround them. Even now, as they were leaving, the scope of human military power was becoming more clear with every passing minute. Sir, she said softly, the human ships are not following us. They are just appearing wherever they need to be. I watch one ship disappear from behind us, and then it is suddenly ahead of us, like it traveled through folded space. Science Officer Dora had spent the entire trip trying to understand what she had witnessed. Commander Bora is correct. Their ships do not move through space in any way that follows known physics. They simply exist wherever they choose to exist. Sub-Commander Nuri was looking pale and had barely spoken since they began their retreat. How do we explain this to High Command? How do we tell them that we found a species that makes our entire empire look like children playing with toys? That was the question that had been haunting Caro since Admiral Yuna had revealed the true size of the human fleet. The Valathi Empire prided itself on being the most advanced civilization in their part of the galaxy. They had conquered 47 different species, each time proving their technological and military superiority. Now they had discovered that compared to humanity, they were the primitive ones. Communications Officer Hana was monitoring transmissions from the human fleet. Sir, the humans are discussing our departure among themselves. Their language is very complex, but our computers have translated some of their conversation. What are they saying? Asked Caro. They are discussing whether we represent a future threat to other species in the galaxy. Some of them think we should be monitored to prevent us from attacking other civilizations. Weapons Officer Tay looked up from his useless control panels. They are talking about monitoring the entire Valathi Empire? How would they even do that? Dora checked her instruments. Based on their demonstrated capabilities, I believe they could place surveillance devices throughout our territory without us ever knowing. Their stealth technology is so advanced that they could probably watch every planet we control simultaneously. The thought was terrifying. The humans could be watching them right now, and the Valathi would have no way of knowing. Their supposedly secure military communications, their classified research facilities, their strategic planning sessions, all of it could be completely transparent to human intelligence gathering. Captain Juno's voice came through the communication system. Fleet Commander Caro, we are approaching the boundary of the Sol system. Once you cross this line, you will be in neutral space. Thank you, Captain, replied Caro. He paused, then asked the question that had been bothering him throughout their retreat. "Captain Juno, may I ask you something?" "Of course. Your ship, the Indomitable. You said it was a light patrol vessel. What is the most powerful ship in the human fleet?" Captain Juno was quiet for a moment, as if he was trying to decide how to answer. "Fleet Commander, the ships you saw today were all defensive vessels designed to protect the Sol system from minor threats. Our actual military operates on a much larger scale." "Larger scale?" "Yes. The Sol Defense Fleet consists of about 1,500 ships. The human Space Force has approximately 50,000 vessels of various classes. The Bridge of the Eternal Glory became completely silent. 50,000 ships. The number was so large that it was difficult to comprehend. The entire Valathi Empire had 800 ships total, and they had thought that made them a major galactic power. 50,000, repeated Commander Bora weakly. That number includes support vessels, transports, and research ships, said Captain Juno. Our actual combat fleet is smaller. Only about 20,000 ships are dedicated warships. Only 20,000 warships. The humans had 25 times more military vessels than the Valathi Empire's entire fleet, and they considered this a normal amount for their defense needs. Captain, said Caro carefully, what would happen if humanity decided that the Valathi Empire was a threat that needed to be eliminated? Captain Juno's expression became very serious. Fleet Commander, I hope that situation never arises. Humanity prefers peaceful coexistence with other species. However, if we were forced to take military action against a hostile civilization, he paused. The conflict would be very brief. Science Officer Dora was doing calculations in her head. Sir, if the humans have 20,000 warships and each one is as advanced as the ships we saw today, they could probably conquer our entire empire in a matter of days. Days? Asked Nuri. Maybe hours, corrected Dora. Their ships can apparently travel anywhere instantly. They could attack all of our worlds simultaneously. Admiral Yuna's voice joined the conversation. Fleet Commander Caro, before you leave our territory, I want to give you some advice. The galaxy is much larger and more complex than your empire realizes. Humanity is not the only advanced civilization out here. There are species that make us look primitive, just as we apparently make you look primitive. There are civilizations more advanced than humanity? Asked Caro. Oh yes, we are actually considered a relatively young species by galactic standards. We have only been spacefaring for a few hundred years. Some civilizations have been exploring the galaxy for millions of years. The implications of this revelation were staggering. If humanity, with their godlike technology, was considered young and relatively primitive by galactic standards, what did the truly ancient civilizations look like? My advice, continued Admiral Yuna, is that the Valathi Empire should focus on peaceful development and scientific advancement. The conquest model of civilization is outdated and dangerous. There are things in this galaxy that you do not want to provoke. Captain Juno added, Fleet Commander, you and your people are welcome to establish diplomatic relations with humanity. We are always interested in cultural and scientific exchange with other species. Diplomatic relations? Repeated Caro. Yes. Despite this unfortunate first encounter, humanity bears no ill will toward the Valathi people. We understand that your intelligence about our capabilities was severely flawed. If your government is interested in trade agreements or technology sharing, we would be willing to discuss such arrangements. Commander Bora leaned close to Caro and whispered, Sir, they are offering to share technology with us, human technology. The possibility was almost overwhelming. Access to human science could advance Valathi's civilization by thousands of years, but it would also mean admitting that they were the inferior species in need of help. What would humanity want in return? Asked Caro. Peaceful behavior, replied Admiral Yuna simply. We would expect the Valathi Empire to cease all aggressive expansion and focus on improving the lives of your existing citizens. We would also want your help in monitoring this region of space for other potential threats. You want us to help? You watch for hostile civilizations? Yes. The galaxy can be a dangerous place. Civilizations that work together are safer than those that try to dominate others. As they crossed the boundary of the Sol system, Caro found himself facing the most important decision in Valathi history. He could return to the Empire and report that they had failed to conquer the humans. The High Command would probably order another, larger fleet to attack the Sol system. That would be a disaster of unimaginable proportions. Or he could recommend that the Valathi Empire abandon its conquest policies and seek peaceful relations with humanity and other advanced species. "Captain Juno," said Caro slowly, "if I recommend to my government that we pursue diplomatic relations with humanity, what would be the first step? We would send an ambassador to your capital world to begin formal negotiations. The process would be completely peaceful and respectful of Valathi sovereignty. And if my government chooses to ignore my recommendations and sends another fleet to attack your territory?" Captain Juno's expression became sad. "Then we would be forced to take more decisive action to protect ourselves and our allies." The message was clear. Humanity would not tolerate another attack. The next Valathi fleet to enter human space would not be escorted home safely. As the human escort ships began to turn back toward their home system, Admiral Yuna spoke one final time. "Fleet Commander Caro, I hope you will convey to your leaders that humanity is willing to be a friend to the Valathi people. We believe that cooperation between our species could benefit both civilizations greatly. I will deliver your message." "Admiral," replied Caro. "Good luck, Fleet Commander. I hope we meet again under more pleasant circumstances." The communication channel closed, and the human ships disappeared as suddenly as they had appeared. The Valathi fleet was alone in space, heading home with news that would change their civilization forever. Caro sat in his command chair, thinking about the report he would have to write. How do you explain to your government that everything they believed about their place in the galaxy was wrong? How do you describe meeting a species